Welcome to Life Unrestricted.
This is your show if you're sick of living a life controlled by food and exercise rules, and if you're ready to learn how to accept yourself and enjoy the heck out of life. My gig is about body image, femininity, self-worth, and resilience. Come on, let's walk side by side as we slowly step out of restriction misery and unlock our true selves.
Your host, Merritt Boxler, is a former national radio DJ, freelance journalist, speaker, and writer with a passion to make women feel good in their bodies. This is a show brought to you live from Switzerland.
Hi there, you. Good to have you back on. I hope everything is fine for you. For me, the past weeks have been a bit meh, bit blah. Just because, well, you know, body acceptance in a fat-shaming world sucks. And it's hard to battle those inner demons that want to convince us to hop on the next diet wagon or something like that, which of course is so not going to happen. What is going to happen, though, is that I will continue battling our collective inner skinny ideal gremlin by bringing you the best guests onto the show so that we are all reminded that we are all, in fact, good enough the way we are, that we do not need to change our bodies, manipulate or suppress our weight or kill ourselves at the gym, that we are worthy, just the way we came into this world. Eat this, diet culture. And before we get into today's episode, I want to say thank you. Thank you to all those of you who have made a contribution on Patreon, patreon.com. You might have heard me speak about it in last week's podcast. It's a, Kickstarter campaign sort of thing. You can put your project on there and then people can make donations to it. And, you know, I'm not selling anything, so I'm really happy if I don't, burn a hole in my pocket by producing this podcast, because it's pretty expensive to do and it takes a lot of time. So if you want to consider becoming a Patreon, please do so. You can do that at patreon.com. That spells patreon.com/lifeunrestricted. And you can make a donation there and I will be so happy for you to do so. And I hope I will, pay you back by bringing you the most awesome episodes I can, and I will. And on that note, let me introduce you to today's guest, a fabulous woman. In today's episode of the Life Unrestricted podcast, I talk to Zoe Nicholson from Melbourne, Australia. Zoe is an accredited practicing dietitian and the owner and director of the highly successful Melbourne-based private practice called Figure 8, spelled out like figure and 8, as in I ate cheesecake. Zoe conducts nutrition seminars and workshops for workplaces and corporations, and she has, together with multi-award-winning fitness professional Jodie Arnott, established the now well-known moderation movement in Australia. In order to catch her, I had to get up way earlier than I usually do, and it was worth it a million times over. Hi, Zoe.
Hi, Merritt. How are you?
Hi. I just got out of bed. Look, that's how I look in the morning.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. As I said, I'm very happy to have you on the show today. You are working as a, weight-neutral dietitian, which is sadly still a pretty rare occurrence. So I really want everybody to get to know you and your mission. So please start with your own story. How was your relationship to body and food when you grew up?
Yeah, so look, it started very normally. I came from a really food and weight neutral family. So up until a certain point, which I'll describe in a moment, I didn't think about food other than, getting home from school. And I remember always really hungry after school, and my brother and I would have lots of the English toasted muffins or toasted cheese sandwiches and egg flips. So I was telling someone about this the other day, what egg flips were, and I know some of the things that we ate in the 80s that don't seem to be in people's diets anymore. But really just a really neutral environment. There was no diet talk, no weight talk, up until I went to a what would you call it? So a lot of the schools here in Year 9 have a living away from school for a term. So the school I went to had a term where we went away, and we all live in households with our schoolmates. And obviously there's some teachers up there, but it's away from family. And I noticed when I was up there, I started getting comments about that I seemed to be able to eat a lot. And having a brother that was 2 years older than me, and, boys that age tend to eat a lot, I just thought I ate a normal amount. But I got lots of comments about how much I ate. Mm-hmm. And I kind of liked, it was a bit of attention. It was good. So I thought, I'm going to impress these girls. I'm going to eat even more. Mm-hmm. So I started eating really silly amounts, like, 10 Weet Bix for breakfast, 6 slices of cheese on toast, 3 serves of pasta at dinner. And there was a few little food rituals we had there, which is one of them, there's biscuits called Mari biscuits. I don't know whether you have them in Switzerland, but no. They're just like a plain sweet biscuit, and we were putting sweetened condensed milk on them. So that was kind of a little thing we were having lots of, and making Milo and milk, but putting more Milo in there than milk. And that was all a great experience. It was just enjoying food, eating food. But towards the end of that term, I remember noticing that my tracksuit pants were a little bit tighter. Didn't think too much about it at the time. It's just a little memory I have. It wasn't until I got back to Melbourne that a few people made comments. So one was my ballet teachers. So I did ballet from age 4 up until 16. So I was 14 at this stage. And my ballet teachers made a comment that, you've, put on a bit of weight. And at that time, and as far as my memory stretches back, I didn't think too much about that. And being back at home, I went back to normal eating, and I just went back to my normal weight. And I couldn't even tell you how much I gained. And it really, again, at that stage wasn't a big deal, or wasn't really a deal at all. It wasn't until year 10 when I suppose if I say that, the main body image issue I had as a teenager was bad skin, was pimples or acne. And my mum had facials or waxes with a beautician, and she was just talking to her one day about my skin, and the beautician said, you should bring her in, I might be able to help her. So Mum did. And this beautician suggested the anti-candida diet. For those people that don't know what that is, or there might be different versions of it around the world, no sugar, no dairy, I can't remember if there was no wheat, but definitely no sugar, no dairy. I know today they look at no gluten as well. Yeah, I can't actually remember back then whether that was the case. But one of the things that still boggles me to this day, and I have this conversation with my mum, because my mum's one of the most sort of down-to-earth, practical, sensible people you'll ever meet, was the fact that she thought this was a good idea for her at the time. I would have been 15-year-old daughter. Mm-hmm. But I started it, and after a couple of months, no change in my skin whatsoever, but I'd lost some weight. Now, I've always been lean. That's just the genetics in our family. So I definitely didn't, I didn't really have any extra weight to lose, but I lost some weight. And that coincided with a couple of things. One being, I guess, the comments from my ballet teacher. So that was what brought that first awareness of thinking about my body in terms of a weight. But at school, I had my friends, but I never felt like I was as popular as I wanted to be. And that was year 10 now, I started competing in aerobics. And obviously when you're competing in aerobics and wearing skimpy clothing.
The 80s Jane Fonda aerobics.
Yeah, it was freestyle aerobics. So certainly before Les Mills took the world by storm. So freestyle aerobics, and it was something that was called school aerobics that we have here, and people, compete in aerobics. But I was doing that, and all of a sudden the popular girls at school started paying me attention, because I like to get around. I think I was aware that I had, I guess, what would be considered a desirable physique. So I used to get around in my PE uniform, which back then school PE uniforms were like your little short netball skirt. And yeah, so girls started coming up to me and just asking me what I ate. So it was so I was getting this attention from more people, more attention than I'd ever got before. I was competing in aerobics and in an environment where that thin body was what was praised. So it was almost like everything was affirming that this thinner body I had was good.
Mm-hmm.
And with all this attention I was getting, I was thinking, I like this. I want to keep this up.
Yeah, of course.
So that's when I decided to teach myself about calories, to the extent that I would calculate all the calories I was eating, and then I would go down to the gym and burn them off. So that's as disordered as my eating ever got. But it did get to a point. And I took the anti-candida diet further than it needed to go. I started cutting every skerrick of fat. So this is the 80s, everything, everyone's fearful of fat.
Mm-hmm.
So I started, avoiding all fat in my food. I really took the eating to the extreme. I'd go to the gym for a couple of hours and, what I thought I was doing was burning off everything I was eating. And I think that went on for a few months. And I was really fortunate that I had a couple of teachers who I really respected. One of them was a PE teacher at school, and the other, one of my aerobics instructors at the local gym I went to. And they both pulled me aside and said, look at you. I remember Michelle Osborne-Smith, who was my PE teacher, just pulling me aside and saying, look at you, you're a bag of bones. But the way that she did it, I really respected her. The way that she did it really made me stop and think. And I think between her saying something, the other aerobics instructor saying something, and that coincided with my mum obviously was aware of what was going on.
Yeah.
And she just said to me one day, she said, you need to start eating normally or I'm going to cancel your gym membership. So this was I was in year 11 now too, so potentially interfering with my VCE. My capacity to get into university.
Mm-hmm.
So something must have just clicked in me and I just stopped. And that's the best memory I have of it. I just stopped the behaviour. I went back to eating normally. I stopped exercising like crazy. I kept competing in aerobics and did in year 12 as well. And 25 years later, I'm still doing aerobics. I still enjoy that. But yeah, I was really fortunate that I didn't, because certainly I was on a path towards an eating disorder, and certainly I'm able to reflect now, and I've only honestly been able to do this in the last couple of years since I've really moved into a health at every size, non-diet, intuitive eating approach, to be able to really reflect and say, wow, I had a couple of years of really disordered eating. And, there would have, perhaps someone with a different environment, different surroundings, and perhaps someone from a dieting family, the consequences might have actually been a lot more drastic.
That's what I think, yeah. Was it hard to give it up? And because there's certain addictive tendencies that start to occur when we lose weight. It's like, wow, we have to sort of keep this going, and just giving it up seems scary to many people. So it wasn't for you?
No, I have no memory of it being an issue. Maybe I've blocked it out, I don't know. But it was probably only a couple of kilos. Mm-hmm. So it really was, it wasn't a significant shift for me in a sense. So when I went back to normal and, there was a weight increase, it might have just been a couple of kilos. I honestly don't know.
And you didn't get any bad comments from your friends or anybody?
No.
Oh,
no.
Good. That is easier probably than people who have to regain some weight. Sadly, they get bad comments from their friends or their surroundings, and that makes them relapse because they don't want to give up the praise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was having this conversation on another podcast about how our culture in Australia in the 80s may not have been as fixated on weight and dieting as certainly as America. I'm not sure about Europe. So, I mean, even my memories at school, so going back to that term away I had, there was no, and this is a bunch of 14-year-old girls, there was no diet talk, there was no body comparing. That wasn't part of the common language or the common conversation. And I believe that's changed now. It's much more, diet culture is much more pervasive, and that sort of talk is much more normal now.
Yeah, it's vicious.
And look, there's no doubt that influenced, so that experience I went through influenced my decision to become a dietitian, because, of course, naively I thought I can help everyone, lose weight if they just eat less and move more. I mean, I did it. Everyone else can do it, of course, which obviously I, fully recognise now is not the case. And I didn't end up going to uni straight away. I did one of the best things ever, which, frightened the pants off my mum, which is quit uni and work for a bit and then go travel the world. But no, it was a brilliant experience. So but I was a little bit older by the time I went back to uni to study dietetics, and I finished, so I would have been 28 when I graduated, but still very much of the mindset that, I one of the reasons for becoming a dietitian, there was that influence, but I've always loved food. I've actually always really enjoyed eating, and I wanted to help other people really find that pleasure in food as well, and not have to restrict food, not feel like they had to diet or had to eat a certain way. Actually, one of my big influences was a book I read probably towards the end of my dietetics training. So it's a fairly well-known book by Dr. Rick Kausman called If Not Dieting, Then What? Mm-hmm. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
No, so Rick is really probably one of the most influential people in Australia who's been working in this health at every size, non-diet space, and he's been doing it, I think, since around the 80s, certainly early 90s. And that book has been quite an influential book, and I read that, and I just remember reading that and just thinking, wow, that's how it should be. But of course, we didn't get taught, nothing at uni was really, really aligned to that. But as soon as I started practicing, I still had this idea in my head that I can, just help people lose weight if they eat less and move more, but eat less in a way that's still enjoyable and is not restrictive. But of course, the way when I first started practicing, it was still dieting, which I would have never said back then. I was always very adamant, even though I was giving people meal plans, calorie-controlled meal plans, I was very adamant that it wasn't a diet. But I'm quite comfortable to say now that, yes, for the first too many years of my practice, I was using dieting techniques with my clients. And I think a really interesting reflection on that is, for myself, I felt like I was managing my weight, so keeping myself, in a slimmer body by eating in the way that I was educating my clients, which was, I guess, being, careful during the week. So I thought that I ate roughly X amount of calories each day, and that by doing that I afforded myself on the weekend to just relax and eat whatever I felt like.
Yes.
Yeah, and often people used to say to me, "Oh, how do you stay like that when we see you, you go out, you seem to eat and drink whatever you want?" And I honestly thought it was because I was managing my food in that fashion. And so that's why I thought, well, I can, if I can do it, again, I can get my clients to do it. And now what I've recognised, once I've let go of all of that and I'm now really embraced all those intuitive eating principles, is now I eat whatever I goddamn feel like, and I'm not careful with how many nuts I use or how much avocado or how much olive oil. I used to be, really stingy with all those things, and really conscious to put lots of vegetables in dishes. A relationship I had quite some time back, the boyfriend at the time was cooking some sort of Thai green curry, and I was saying, no, you've got to put more vegetables in it. And I made him put all these extra vegetables in it. And I think back now and I just kind of, face palm. But I honestly believe that if we did that, then there'd be less coconut milk in my bowl and less rice. And then overall, that was what was behind all this. So I can still eat that beautiful food I like, but if I manage it like this, then I won't have too many calories and it's not going to be an issue. Mm-hmm. And that really annoyed me.
Exactly the same, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember having a conversation with him afterwards, and he just didn't get it, and it sort of, really annoyed the hell out of him. And I get that now. I have hundreds of clients or patients that I would love to go back and apologise to. In particular, there's a couple of suburbs in Melbourne, Coburg and Brunswick, which have a big Italian-Greek influence, and I was working there for a while. And, they'd come in and they had the beautiful diets, and a lot of them sticking to their traditional Mediterranean diets. And I was telling them to cut down on their olive oil, saying 1 tablespoon of olive oil is X amount of, and you need to reduce that. And I wish I could go back and undo all of that. But I can't. And I've now learnt that you can actually use copious amounts of olive oil. And same with cooking. You can have your beautiful Thai green curry and, with plenty of full-fat coconut milk, rice, all, have it the traditional way. And as long as you eat to appetite, you don't need to worry about the calories. So that's one of the biggest things for me really in the last couple of years, is just letting go of this idea that we need to even understand what calories are. And this was where I was really misguided, is just because by managing my eating like that, I was able to stay the size I was. I'm this size because that's my genetics. And that's, I guess, what I didn't really appreciate is that not everybody else, they can, be really careful with their food, but that doesn't guarantee that they're going to have, perhaps be that smaller size that they think that they should be, or that our culture is telling them that they should be.
But people who are fixated on weight loss, they are not going to believe you if you tell them to put more rice and coconut oil in the dish instead of vegetables, because there's going to be pushback. They're going to be afraid of gaining the weight, because that's the whole driver behind the thing.
Yeah, so that's where having that conversation with clients, that if they are ready to go down the intuitive eating path, is being able to put that weight loss goal just to the side or on the back burner. And I'm quite fortunate that most of my clients, and I guess it's the way that I've set myself up in terms of my social media and my website, is the majority of clients that come to me understand that. They still have a desire to lose weight, but they recognise that they need to make that, not make that the focus, which for a lot of them is still challenging, but they're just at that next step of readiness. So they're ready to hear those messages about, well, look, if you actually made it with the full-fat coconut milk and had some rice with it and didn't just make it a big bowl of broccoli, you might actually be more satisfied after the meal, and therefore the flow-on effects to your eating later on, or the positive effects, and that, when people choose meals that are quote-unquote healthier, if they're not as satisfied, they're often left searching or wanting more. So looking for that next thing, or looking for that thing to hit the spot if the actual meal didn't do it.
But still, a lot of people, they somehow expect that intuitive eating will eventually make them lose weight, and they are able to turn it into some kind of diet, even the intuitive eating diet, like there's promised weight loss at the end. But I think that's a huge danger in the whole approach, because it misleads. I think for someone who's been really restrictive all their lives, they might gain weight and they might not want that.
Yeah, absolutely. The intuitive eating diet, there's a couple of different ways I talk about that with clients. From Michelle May's book, Eat What You Love, Love What You Eat, she talks about, not turning it into the Am I Hungry diet. And then I listened to a podcast the other day with Isabel Fox and Duke, and she refers to it as the hunger fullness diet. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that. So I do that in the first session with my clients, and usually each session thereafter that will come up, just to make sure, let's not turn this into the intuitive eating diet, the Am I Hungry diet. Because yes, absolutely, a lot of people, although they understand the logic, the concepts, they understand the need to put the weight loss goal to the side. And I talk about that in the context of, when you're focused on weight loss, it clouds out the ability to actually listen or trust those internal cues. So they get all that, but it doesn't necessarily stop them from still hoping that if they learn to eat intuitively, they'll lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a conversation that I keep having with clients and something that we work through. The toughest part of the process is the body image stuff. I often talk about, I guess, almost the body image is like the biggest roadblock to actually learning how to trust your body again.
It is.
Yeah, so I work with quite a few really good psychologists, and we have a conversation around body image. There's certain things that I will do with clients. I've got so many fantastic resources. I've read so many amazing books, and I use a lot of the intuitive eating resources. So Evelyn Tribbley and Elise Resch. Then we've also got our non-diet approach resources. So there's a brilliant dietitian here, Dr. Fiona Willer, who's doing a lot of research into HAES and non-diet approach. And she's put together a workbook for dietitians and a course that we do as well. So there's some great resources in there to start having the body image conversation.
Yeah, I think personally I believe it's impossible to make peace with food and find carefree moderation without addressing that body image, since it's always like the thing that makes us fall back into any patterns of disordered eating or exercise behaviors. And body image work really doesn't have anything to do with actual nutrition, but psychological issues around self-worth and control. So I was going to ask, how do you distinguish between being a nutritionist and a psychologist, basically? Because that's, in the end, that's what it boils down to.
Excellent question. So very quickly, when I first started practicing straight out of uni, I was actually really fortunate to be able to go straight into private practice. But it only took a couple of clients and I was like, oh my God, I need to do a psychology degree. I remember, talking to my mum and saying, oh, I have to go back to uni and do psychology. And, my mum being the, sensible, pragmatic person she is, said, yeah, stick with it for a little longer. The more clients you see, you'll probably get a better understanding of how to manage those aspects. And look, and she was right to a point. You just learn a lot from listening to and being with other people and hearing their stories. But I did go on and do some postgraduate counselling skills. So I've done probably 6 or 7 different things, little short courses along the way, which have been really helpful. Probably the most helpful is the motivational interviewing skills, which are just absolutely crucial. I'm a dietitian. I don't actually want to be a psychologist. So so these non-diet approach tools were fantastic in the sense that I was seeing that getting clients to do these activities, it was allowing them to explore their own psychology. And then I was much better able to see whether I needed to refer them on to see a psychologist, if that makes sense. But look, I would have at least 2 or 3 clients a week saying, wow, you do a lot of psychology, or you have to be a psychologist as well as a dietitian. So yeah, there is a lot of counselling that we do, and I guess using psychology techniques, but without being a psychologist.
Yeah, let's make an example, because I think many, if not most women, have a belief that being thinner will help them be more confident, be more sexy, being able to achieve more in life, maybe. And this belief is very deep-rooted, and it's very persistent and quite persuasive as well, which doesn't make it more true, though, but it's a very hard one to get over. And it's really hard to see that the two things, the thinness and the success or the confidence, really don't have anything to do with each other. And I can only say for myself that I didn't even want to hear this 2 years ago. I was so convinced that in my case, this was the truth. So I'm guessing it's not an easy belief to change. And so the question is, how do you help your clients see what's behind all that?
A question I would ask a lot of clients is, what do you hope to gain by losing weight? And there's probably, the 3 most common answers would be to feel better about myself. Confidence is a big one that comes up, and to fit into clothing. So interestingly, probably the most common ones that come up aren't actually health related in the sense of, I guess, because obviously mental health is tied in with physical health, but they're not fitness related, they're not disease prevention related, if you like. And a lot of people are stuck on that message that also the importance of losing weight is so that I don't get type 2 diabetes, or that so I feel fitter, or I'm able to run around after my kids, all of those sorts of things. So I guess having that conversation, that looking, what will you gain by losing weight, and laying those out and looking at, okay, well, can we start working on those now without focusing on weight loss? And the answer for all of them is, except for one, is yes. And the only one that's popping to mind at the moment, but it's a really big one, that I see with my clients, is not being able to fit into their clothes. So, but I find most people are happy to start with the other ones that they know, so they can start working on perhaps their physical fitness in terms of running around after kids, or just feeling better in their body. I don't think I've ever asked a person that when you are more active, how do you feel in your body? Invariably, the answer is better. And people recognise that. They're like, yeah, actually, when I'm more active, I feel better in myself. And we've now established one of the reasons for losing weight is you want to feel better in your body. And often I talk about feeling comfortable in your body physically and emotionally. So already starting to move more is starting to work towards that goal. The confidence side of things, I might explore with a client, what other things in your life give you confidence that aren't related to appearance? And often something will come up and we might talk about focusing on that. So it's just picking one thing, one of those things that I think, well, if I'm thinner, this will happen, and looking at, okay, well, how can we work on that without focusing on the weight? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It seems like the first step to change those age-old beliefs about thinness, food and fitness and body brings us head on, whether we like it or not, with great discomfort. And, when the discomfort gets too much, we become afraid, and then we turn back to our old ways of having rules and weighing ourselves and obsessing over food and our bodies and fitness. And the new liberating information that you, among others, provide is what we're all looking for, to finally step out of this diet and weight oppression we're living in. But one has to acknowledge that it does feel horrible to do so. So the way to liberation is really much harder than to keep dieting. That's absurd and sad, but it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I've heard lots of body positive or HAES people talk about it, dieting in this way, and I think it's so true, is that dieting, it's a brilliant distraction from life's messier issues.
It's an escape.
And that's a conversation. Yeah, and I always have that conversation with my clients, that in a sense, the ones that are really fixated on weight, is that it's, the weight problem is really masking, or it's masquerading as the problem, when in fact there's often other messier stuff in life, and the stuff that people feel like they have less control over. So we have sort of mistakenly believe that we can control our weight. We can certainly, quote unquote, control our food, which may, quote unquote, control our weight. So there's a sense that we're able to do something about that. Whereas if you're in an unhappy relationship, a job you hate, there's financial issues, that's a much harder thing to work through. And if I can give you an example of a client of mine, to be very careful of confidentiality here, but I was working with her for around a year, and I think about halfway through we recognised that she needed to go and see a psychologist, and she went and did that, and she really understood the intuitive eating process. She really got it, and she was doing really well, except for that just got to lose weight bit. And I saw her fairly recently. It was, I think, a 3-month follow-up, and she walked in and she sat down with this big smile on her face, and she said, "I've left my husband and I'm gay."
Wow.
So
wow, that
talking
gives me
about
chills.
things,
Ah.
and she was just beaming from ear to ear. She just looked like this new person, and I was so happy for her. But it was just a classic example of what she'd been battling with for so many years. And I guess it was less about being in an unhappy marriage and more about her sexuality. And that really was at the core of her unhappiness with herself. And to be able to address that, now she's, eating is just not an issue anymore. Her body is just not an issue anymore.
That's so wonderful to hear. And I think the world has to acknowledge that dieting is just another addiction. We do numb out. That's our way of trying to bring us to safety or avoid rejection or gain control. And giving that up, strangely, feels so dangerous. And that's when I started to realize that is actually an addiction, just as exercise can be an addiction. Stuff that is promoted as a healthy way of eating or a healthy way of living can quickly turn quite sour when there's something we are numbing out from by doing what we are doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a coping mechanism. It's a security blanket.
For me, totally, yes.
Yeah, and letting go of that is scary. So, yeah, something you were saying there about the numbing out, and I know obviously you're very familiar with Dr. Brene Brown's work, but that was one of the things I loved in, I think it's Daring Greatly, where she talks about numbing or busyness as being a form of numbing, and that just constantly doing things stops us from feeling and being.
I hated her saying that because I so recognize myself. The underlying belief there is I'm not worthy if I'm not contributing all the time, and if I'm not available all the time, and if I'm not doing something all the time. There's so many layers always everywhere where we are behaving in certain ways. You can actually try and get to know you better by just asking, why am I really doing this? And it's uncomfortable. I have to say, that's why I said before, it's an uncomfortable way to liberate ourselves, because we come head on with what's really the issue, like with your client. It's wonderful, but it was certainly not easy for her to come out of the closet, to separate from her marriage. And, that's a conflict she was successfully hiding from by dieting and by being weight obsessed. So I feel for that, and I feel for many people, but I think the problem is that most of them don't really admit even that that's what they're doing.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, there's a lot of denial, but there's also, I guess, what feeds into that is this diet culture that we live in, and this idea that we should all be trying to get thinner in order, but that's pushed as be thinner in order to be healthier,
Yeah. Less of you is worth more. It's a completely screwed up concept. It's pretty oppressive, and I think that's where feminism can actually help, even though for years I thought I wasn't a feminist at all. Now I start to see the mechanism and when did it all start? Why were women made to lose weight and everything? So the pieces start to fall into place. And once you really see the whole goings on, you just don't really want to contribute to your own oppression anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is something I'm learning more about is the role of feminism. And I've never said I'm a feminist, but I would, if we actually sit down and look at what a feminist is, we are all feminists.
It's just equality. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's something I've been, looking into and I'm actually keen to learn more about, but it's certainly a conversation I'm having with my clients about acknowledging this culture that we live in and the way that we're made to feel about our bodies from various industries, from the medical profession, the beliefs that have been programmed into us, and the fact that we're all born without knowing into this weight bias. And that was really this idea that fat is bad and thin is good. And that was something that I wasn't as acutely aware of until I was away at an eating disorders retreat. We were given what's called an implicit bias test to do. And Sarah Harry, who was the group leader, essentially pre-warned us that we were all going to fail because, we have this intrinsic belief that fat is bad and thin is good. And I've heard you talk about the internalized fat phobia.
Yes.
And you do this implicit bias test. And I remember thinking, I'm going to pass this, I'll be okay. But the fashion in which they're done, they're from Harvard or Harvard Medical School. You can get them online. But you've got to do them really quickly in the way that you answer these questions. So I did it. And as Sarah predicted, I failed. So my intrinsic belief is that thin is good and fat is bad. Even though explicitly I would say I'm weight neutral. And I respect size diversity and I don't judge body size. But because we're born into this weight bias and that's programmed into us our entire lives, deep down there still is this belief that thin is good and fat is bad. And it's, to change that, it's going to take a long time. And sort of going back to what you were saying before, that, there's a lot of people that aren't even aware of the effect that our culture has on the way we feel about our bodies.
Yeah, and how fatphobic they really are.
Exactly. So most people aren't aware that the ads they see on TV or the messages they're being sold constantly are essentially making them feel bad about themselves or that they're not good enough and that they need to change and they need to buy those products to actually be a better person. So we've got a long way to go in the sense that there's a lot, probably the majority of people, we still have to actually get them to first see that the way they've been programmed to think needs to be questioned. Mm-hmm. And then once they recognise that, then they can, then it's starting to acknowledge that, okay, well, I feel like this about myself because of all of these external influences. And then it's starting, to challenge all those, to start changing the way we think. But mixed into all of that is, of course, the diet industry and the health industry. I mean, every time you go to the doctor, they're weighing you and they're saying you need to lose weight.
Exactly.
Then it's just...
It's everywhere. The diet talk, the food police, it's everywhere. Mm-hmm. Where did it show up for you in that test? Because for me, I hate the feeling when it shows up and I have to admit, damn, that's internalized fat phobia again. And it really keeps me back from making certain progress, or it takes more time to make the progress. And I really hate that because I don't want to be fat phobic anymore, period.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'd have to look at the test again. They're done. You've got 20 seconds to do it, and there's like 2 columns of questions, and they're true and false. And you've just got to, it gives you some information at the top, and you've just got to go through it as quickly as possible. But they're word associations. So what we need to do is we need to get more people to actually acknowledge that and understand what effect that has on people in terms of their psychological and physical health. And really start, questioning and challenging and
awareness would help so much. Awareness would be the first step, and that would help so much. It's important to just have those talks even. And it seems also like there was never a time in history where there was more confusion or guilt or more shame and more craziness basically around food. Everybody seems to be promoting some new lifestyle, and nobody calls it a diet, of course, anymore. Diet is bad, lifestyle is good, health is good, and certain foods can't be eaten. Certain foods are being labeled as the devil, like sugar. Yeah. And it seems like if you asked 100 people what you should be eating to be healthy, you'd get 110 responses, all of which coming from a place of total conviction. Like, I'm sure of this. And if food is the new religion where people want to belong to a certain tribe, that's dangerous in itself. And it is very against our own body trust. By doing what I thought was healthy, that was my direct way away from health, basically. I don't know, when did eating become so complicated, and how can we retrace those steps?
Capitalism has something to do with it as well. So we can get into some really interesting conversations around feminism, politics, capitalism. But there's so much money to be made off making people feel insecure about themselves, and there's so much money to be made. The weight loss dream is a really powerful marketing tool.
$60 billion a year. It's incredible.
And people are just desperate. I mean, we have some, I was going to use the word crazy, but I should say extreme, quote unquote, wellness gurus in Australia. Mm-hmm. One of them has maybe up to 2 million followers. So that's close to 10% of Australia's population. So let's say 1 in 8 people walking around the streets of Australia, of Melbourne, and it's contributing to the increase in disordered eating and eating disorders, and obviously confusion around food. And when I say he's extreme, because he says that grains are harmful to human health. Legumes are bad. So he's a paleo diet advocate, and he's a chef by trade. He's a TV personality. So he's handsome. He's got a big white shining smile. He's tanned, and he's a celebrity. And, you know, people are buying into that dream that if I follow this way of eating, my problems are going to go away. And it's almost, he has a cult-like following.
His money problems are certainly going away by him doing that. That's about the only problem that's going away. Oh, it makes me so angry.
And there's so many contradictions, because he has published many recipe books over the years. Before he went paleo, he has a few wonderful pizza recipe books. But, of course, has he taken those off the market? No. So he's still selling recipe books to people, but at the same time saying that if you eat that, it's going to kill you. So it's a little bit...
I don't know. It seems like certain people just can be contradictive all they want, and people just want to follow that person no matter what. They're so desperate.
And it's the things that grab the headlines. So we have the I Quit Sugar program is big in Australia, and they don't quit sugar. They just don't have normal sugar, as in sucrose, which is what we use in Australia, cane sugar. They use rice malt syrup as an alternative, but it's still pure sugar. Mm-hmm. You know, having that. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I Quit Sugar is it sells books. It's a great headline, and the woman behind that is tall, blondish, very, you know, attractive as per the cultural ideal. She meets the cultural ideal.
Stock photos, yes.
Yeah. I can only speak for the clients that come to see me, but a lot of my clients have either gone paleo or quit sugar, and the reason that they did it, to lose weight. So essentially it's all part of that big weight loss marketing machine.
And some people do lose weight on a new diet because all diets work short term, which makes them so vicious, right? Because you keep coming back to them. And so they preach the paleo word or the vegan word because it worked for them short term, and they're devastated to see that it doesn't work long term.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, that's one of the big problems with diets, is that they often work short term but not long term. So yes, the majority of the people I see have done a program more than once. So there's another big personal training program here which turns over at least $4 million a year just on online sales for a 12-week body transformation. Most of my clients that have done that program have done it at least 3 times.
Oh God.
And I wrote a blog once about, you know, if you have to do a diet program more than once, then it's not working.
No, it's not.
And just talking about all of that. But yeah, they do it over and over. So not only are they paying these people more and more money, but with each diet attempt, they get more miserable. So their psychological health is being damaged.
Yes.
But also physiologically as well. In terms of the experience of a lot of people is that they lose weight, they put it back on, they lose weight, they put it back on, and they often get a little bit heavier each time, and it gets harder to lose weight each time. Mm-hmm. And they become obsessed and preoccupied, and, you know, lots of guilt and shame around food. So they end up less healthy than when they started.
And ruining their metabolism even more instead of sort of trying to heal it. And you cannot heal it by being restrictive. sadly,
Yeah.
or that's not what people want to hear. So how do you teach people to learn to intuitively eat when they're not used to that?
So I follow the intuitive eating principles from the book Intuitive Eating, and then the non-diet approach counselling skills that we learn in Australia that we're taught, using a combination of those, and rejecting that diet mentality is almost the number one thing that people have to do.
Mm-hmm. And the hardest.
Yeah. And look, the journey is different for different people, and it takes different lengths of time. You know, I've had some people who, when I first speak to them, they appear to have quite a damaged relationship with food in their body, but they just blossom once they start doing the intuitive eating. And I've had someone just recently, within a couple of months, just completely turn around. But then I have other people, and it takes a lot longer. So, it can take weeks to months to years to actually heal that relationship with food and the body. So I can't tell you exactly what I do with clients, because we'd be sitting here for another few hours.
What is the pushback you get from people that question intuitive eating and health at every size?
If they gain weight, certainly is one. I have had that happen with some clients. Once they let go of their dieting rules, they gain a little bit of weight. Just so stuck in the belief that if I let myself eat that, I will go crazy. I won't be able to stop eating. And that is an experience that can happen with some clients in the early phases. If you've been restricting yourself of certain food for a long time, it's really natural in those first few weeks or months, or however long it is, it's really natural to want to eat more of those foods you've been restricting. And so then people think, well, this can't be intuitive because my body's it's not wanting a balance of food. But that is something that does change in time. So if people can get through that phase of just allowing themselves to eat lots of those foods they've been restricting, people get to a point where they're like, enough. You know what? I actually don't want that anymore. I feel like having something else.
Mm-hmm. So before we talk about the moderation movement, I have a question about moderation in itself. Please explain moderation to me, because I somehow don't seem to do moderation, and I often find myself shying away from the word, because somehow when I hear moderation, my inner rebel goes, screw this, I want everything, which is probably not the idea of moderation. And I believe that deep down there's still a belief that moderation means don't eat too much, which is almost like mental deprivation. And it's the same with eating mindfully, actually. My brain just melts when it hears eating mindfully. I get visuals of individuals chewing their food 100 times while, staring dreamily into the distance. And, well, I just want to eat, sometimes mindlessly. So there's that. So how do you teach stubborn cases like me to get the moderation thing right?
So, I guess moderation and like mindful eating, they're not absolute things. And I think this is where a lot of the problem lies. Our brains like to think in categories, sort of black and white thinking, and a lot of people have quite strong sort of black and white thinking. So moderation is not one thing that you're trying to do, and mindful eating is the same. So I think it's Julie Duffy Dillon, who's a registered dietitian in America, has a fabulous podcast.
Wonderful.
And yeah, she talks about, there's no correct way to eat mindfully. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the trap that we fall into, is thinking that we have to do it a certain way. So moderation, as per I think it's the Oxford Dictionary definition, is the avoidance of extremes. But I always like to say, in the words of Oscar Wilde, everything in moderation, including moderation. So it's not this one thing that you can say this is what it is and this is what it looks like. It's different for different people. But importantly, to find your moderation, or what moderation means to you, requires you to be attuned to your body.
And that might mean that I have to go through the first phase of intuitive eating, where I might not do moderation at all, and in fact eat everything, and then hold that discomfort, and then it will subside and I will naturally find moderation.
Yes.
Did I? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So as you're able to connect to your cues of and trust, understand for you what hunger is, what fullness is, what food truly satisfies you, then it's going to be much more likely that you will find what moderation is for you.
Mm-hmm.
But it will mean different things at different times. Moderation means sometimes you might have, a little of something. Sometimes you might have a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you might say, no, actually, I don't want it all. I don't want it at all. And other times you might, really go to town on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on how you feel in that moment, what else is going on in that moment. So
And no rigidity.
And no rigidity. And it can change while you're in the throes of moderation, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
So you might be out to dinner and you've just had a beautiful meal and some nice wine, and you recognise that you're comfortably full, and and you've looked at the dessert cabinet and you think, there's nothing in there that really floats my boat, so I won't have any. And then maybe it's someone's birthday and someone's organised a cake that you didn't know about, and then someone brings out a cake. Mm-hmm. And then you may well choose to have some because it's someone's birthday and it's
mm-hmm.
cake and someone's made it and it's delicious. And then you might eat past that point of comfortable fullness, or you might not. Like, you can be comfortably full, eat something else and still be comfortably full. Mm-hmm. And this is there's kind of no line in the sand that you're looking to draw.
Yeah. The more I talk about this, the more I notice how many rules I had and how many times I've denied myself food, and other times I've totally, went overboard because I was too deprived. And I realized that a lot of women have that. I mean, nowadays when people bring cake to the office or something, most women go, no, thanks, I shouldn't. So it's like we have totally forgotten how joy works.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the pleasure and satisfaction factor in eating is collateral damage. It's been taken away. It's, for a lot of people, eating is doing the quote unquote right thing, making the healthy choice. And if it happens to satisfy you, if you happen to enjoy it while you're eating it, well, that's a bonus. In actual fact, that's just crazy. Food is such an important part of, as well as nourishing our bodies, of social connection, enjoyment in life.
I think it's a sensual experience, and we've forgotten that mostly. Yeah. So talk to me about the wonderful moderation movement. It's a movement you created together with Jody Arnott, who promotes a moderate approach to movement and exercise, which hits home for me because I don't know a lot about a moderate approach to movement and exercise, being an exercise addict. Let's dive into the whole thing. What does the moderation movement represent, and how did it come about?
So basically, we are trying to bring back satisfaction and pleasure and enjoyment of all food, and exercise for enjoyment rather than punishing your body, or rather than as a means to lose weight or change your shape. And it came about due to all the hype and craziness around food that's happening. So if anything, I do have those quote-unquote wellness gurus I referred to before, partly to thank for the beginning of the moderation movement, because I was getting fed up with their rants. And there was a few other, there's a well-known lawyer here who was also trying to tell us that sugar was poisonous and that certain vegetable oils were toxic. And there were just all these messages, and I was seeing the damaging effect this was having on some of my clients. So I started posting about it, and it started getting lots of interest. And actually one of them got shared on one of these quote unquote wellness gurus page, which then, brought a whole lot of traffic to my page, which was great, along with lots of abuse, but that's okay. I can handle that. And anyway, for about a year, I was sort of trying to fight back against all this extremism with eating, and trying to say, hang on a sec, well, look, and I've always been clear on this. If you want to go paleo, if you want to quit sugar, knock yourself out. As long as it's benefiting your mental and physical health, as long as you're quite comfortable doing that, that's fine. But what I wanted to let people know is that you don't have to do that. And if you find that trying to follow those ways of eating are actually damaging for you, so mentally or physically, then look, there is another way.
And they will eventually find that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then, so all this time while I was doing this, Jodie was stalking me, and reading all my posts and loving them. And then eventually one day she rang me up and she said, "Oh, I've been following your figure eight page. I love what you stand for. My business is not far from yours. Perhaps we should meet." So we ended up meeting for coffee. That was in August in 2014, and got along really well and decided that, okay, maybe we could run some sort of event and talk about all this stuff. And sort of driving home, I was thinking, okay, yep, but before we do that, we need to start a Facebook page because that will hopefully get us an audience, and then we'll have people to sell tickets to. So I sort of rang Jodie and I suggested that idea. She thought it was great. We came up with a name. I think it was Jodie that actually came up with the name, started the page, and overnight got 1,500 followers, which is a lot for us non-celebrity people. And then it just escalated from there. It literally exploded. I know we started it in November, the end of November, so we're not quite 2 years old yet. And we're getting close to 32,000 followers now. So we've attracted a really big audience, which is fantastic. And to me, it just shows that people want to hear this message.
Oh, yeah.
People, are sick of dieting. They're sick of diet culture. They're sick of struggling with food. They're sick of hating their bodies.
Yes.
And they're looking for something else. So I guess that's really what fueled the moderation movement, was the fact that we had all these people coming to our page and saying, yes, this resonates with us. It's also very much fueled by all the extreme diets. As much as I'd like them to all go away, they have provided lots of ammunition for us to talk about and to write about. And then, so as well as being a Facebook page, we did go ahead and start running events, which was the initial plan. And we had our first event in February this year in Melbourne, and that was a huge success. It was a wonderful day. We've held another one in the Gold Coast a couple of weeks ago. We've got another one in Melbourne coming up on the 22nd of October. We're kind of both sort of fly by the seat of our pants kind of gals. We'll just, play it by ear, see what happens, whether we do more events or whether we look at doing other things, different platforms. But yeah, so essentially Moderation Movement really started as a Facebook page that went gangbusters and just kept us doing that for a while, and now we'll just let it evolve and grow and turn into what it wants to turn into.
I so love that you are actually uniting people in real life. That's what I really miss in this movement, that there are people, finding back to sanity, but usually they don't live as close together. And so we're sort of spread out all over the world and connecting via the internet. And hearing that you are actually bringing people together makes my heart open up. I'd really love to be there and see how this goes, because that's what we need. We need support. We need, sisterhood, and that includes men. But I mean, being together and carrying each other through that and saying no to the old oppression. And that's so much easier when we have someone to actually hold our hand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's, I guess, the big positive of social media. So I know people talk about the evil side of social media.
Which is there, of course.
Which is there, yeah. But there's just the tremendous benefits of it, so having those platforms, but also the health at every size, or the haze world and the non-diet world, just the connections that I have made with so many different people. So yourself, other podcasts I've done, other dietitians all around the world. I just feel like there's this really wonderful community which just wasn't there before.
No.
So what social media has done is all of a sudden there's this huge sort of big family of people that we all feel connected to. Yeah, that's just an awesome thing.
Yeah, and strangely enough, they all seem to be wonderful people.
Yeah.
None of them is mean, and they all have this sense of unifying people and returning to sanity. It's like there's no toxicity here, and that's what I love about it. There's a lot of love in it.
Yeah, and well, look, because we all practice self-compassion and non-judgment and mindfulness. Yes, we try. So it's a work in progress. If you're connecting with people who are on that same path of practicing self-compassion non-judgment, mindfulness, acceptance, empathy, then I guess it's a recipe for meeting lots of really great people.
Yeah, and that sounds like a very good plan. Where do people find you if they want to work with you? How do they find out about the moderation movement?
Sure. Okay. So the moderation movement is mainly a Facebook page. So as I said, we're still doing events, but you can find all that through our Facebook page, as well as on Instagram and Twitter. And then my business is Figure Eight Dietitians Who Love Food. So it's Figure Eight, spelt figure, Figure, and then ATE, like I ate cheesecake, as you said to me before we started recording. I often say ate as in you ate an apple, but I think I might turn it into something like cheesecake now.
Yeah, do so.
So my website is figure8.com.au, and you can contact me through there. I also have a Figure Eight Facebook page, Instagram, and Twitter. And yeah, I think that's the best way to find me.
My final question to you is, what would you like to be remembered for?
Okay. Now, having listened to all of your podcasts,
thank you.
I have thought about this. I was ready for this question. I want to be remembered as someone who cut through all the bullshit. I also would like to be remembered as one of the dietitians who helped bring HAES, Health at Every Size, and the non-diet approach into the mainstream of our profession, which I believe will happen. Let me put it that way.
That's good to hear. Yeah.
We're not there yet, but yeah, I certainly hope to be part of that group of people who are able to make that happen, and part of the community, as you are, this community across the world that is helping to turn that big ship around in terms of how we view weight loss and health and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a dream to live for. It certainly is. Thank you for your time with me and for waiting for dinner so long.
No, my absolute pleasure. It was a delight to speak with you.
Thank you. Me too. It was really great talking to you, and I wish you the best of success with all of your Figure Eight practices and with Jody and the moderation movement. It's wonderful to see it evolve.
Thank you very much. And I wish you all the best with your journey into health and
sanity.
Sanity, yeah.
Yes. Okay, have a good day. Bye.
You too. Thanks, Merritt. Bye.
Bye.
This was today's dose of badassery from Life Unrestricted. Find the show notes with links to everything we mentioned in this episode over at lifeunrestricted.org. And if this show is making you feel good, awesome, make sure to subscribe and please let others feel good too. By leaving a 5-star review on iTunes, you'll help make this show more visible and therefore more accessible for others. You're the best. Thanks.